Okay, so House of the Dragon Episode 7 set up the seeds of war that Episode 8 seems to be delivering on. Having read the source material, I know there's some big things coming, and we're going to be breaking it all down in this video. We'll play the teaser in just a bit, but it's important to bear in mind that this has another major time jump in it that's likely going to take us to the year 129 AC. This is a massive point in the Fire and Blood storyline in which a major character dies, so if you don't want any spoilers, then I suggest you turn off now. Please hit the thumbs up button if you enjoy the video, and make sure you subscribe for breakdowns on the show every week. With out of the way, thank you for clicking this. Now let's get into the trailer.
As Hand, I speak with the King's voice on this and all other matters.
Tomorrow the Hightowers land their first blow.
Those Vipers rule in my father's name.
To King's Landing, then. The Sea Snake has taken a grave wound in battle in the Stepstones.
Who will take the Driftwood throne?
The crown cannot stand strong if the House of the Dragon remains divided.
This is a matter of blood, not ambition.
This is a trap.
Nephews? The threat of war looms.
Okay, so if we're right about this being 129 AC, that would mean that we've had an almost 10-year time jump to the year of Viserys' death. Though his voiceover appears in the teaser, he's likely gravely ill at this point, and this explains why Otto Hightower is doing the talking for him. Otto obviously has his own goals in mind, and thus it's impossible to even say if what he's saying is what Viserys wants. He says that he's the king's voice, and that he speaks on what he wants and all other matters. What Otto wants though is his grandchild Aegon on the throne, and he'll do this at all costs. In the book, this pushed Daemon and Rhaenyra away, who ended up going to Dragonstone in order to escape the kingdom. I'll talk about how this is a big mistake later on in the video, but it's all a play by Otto, who now rules the realm. This is shown by the fact that he stands in front of the throne, and at points even looks like he's sat in it. Though it was common for the Hand to do this, this is definitely symbolising that he's now in charge of the realm. It'll be interesting to see if he gets cut or not, and if he doesn't, then it might indicate that the Hightowers are in charge in the eyes of the throne. Elsewhere, we see that Alicent is now in Viserys' seat on the council, showing that she's taken over it all. Now this could be during one of two moments, which are brought up in the source material. The book discusses how Viserys started hate ruling and all the issues that came with the heir. Because of this, he stopped going to the throne room and rarely attended the court. Instead, he placed people in the seats who would seemingly do his bidding for him, but all they were really after was taking over the kingdom. His personal maester also died during these years, and there was an effort on both Rhaenyra and Alicent's part to try and appoint their own. However, it was the Citadel who ended up choosing, but it still shows how things have devolved into them trying to pack everything with their own people. Now the shot with Alicent may also be after Viserys' death due to her sitting in the main seat. In the mid-season trailer, there's also a shot where she stands by a window whilst looking upset. That teaser also has a crown on its own placed upon a pillow, hinting that he's now in fact gone. In the book, both Rhaenyra and Daemon went to Dragonstone, and thus when Viz died, Alicent ended up deciding not to send a raven to her so that she could put her plan into play. She took over the council so that they could quickly announce Aegon II as the king, and all this happened whilst Rhaenyra was giving birth. There's also a shot in the trailer with someone in bed, and though this could be Corlys and Rhaenys, I think it's actually Viserys with Rhaenyra going to visit him. Huge shout out to Think Story for pointing out that the window pattern here can be seen at other points in the mid-season trailer when Rhaenyra stands in front of it. It's going to be interesting to see what option they take with Viserys' death, as one account in the book says that he died naturally in his sleep. However, the other says that Alicent murdered him, and earlier in the season, there was suspicion from Laenor and Rhaenyra that she might end up poisoning him. Anyway, Rhaenyra's baby comes out stillborn, and it's believed to have had a dragon's tail. The birth brought Rhaenyra a lot of pain, and she said that Alicent not only killed her child, but that she also took the throne from her in one fell swoop. We also get a shot of the family, and Aegon looks like he's gonna be a right little in this trailer, doesn't he? As you can tell, they've all been aged up, and this time he's gonna be played by Tom Glencarney, who you might recognise from Dunkirk. Aemon is also there too, and he's sporting a badass eye patch and makes him look like Liquid Snake and Big Boss combined. There's also Helaena, and it's likely that she's going to be married to Aegon at this point. She married when she was 13, and the pair ended up having twins. There was one girl and also one boy who had 6 fingers and toes due to them being inbred like Subway fillings. However, this trailer also has a big focus on Vaemond, and with this episode being titled Lord of the Tides, I think it's going to predominantly centre around him. Just when you thought the entire thing with the heirs was complicated enough, it's about to come out even worse. Laenor was of course killed by Vhagar, and Laenor faked his own death, making it seem like both of Corlys's children are now dead and buried. Because of this, both the heirs of Driftmark are no longer there to inherit the throne, and thus Vaemond wants to be announced as the next in line. In the book, this causes a lot of issues because Rhaenyra of course has 2 children who should be the heirs. Because of the line of succession, Jace will get the Iron Throne, whereas Lucerys will inherit Driftmark. This will give them complete rule of both the land and sea, and due to many thinking they're not legitimate, they get contested a lot. They're supposed to be Laenor's kids, even though everyone knows the truth. We all know. Now last week Rhaenys brought this up, and she wanted Corlys to appoint Rhaena and Baelor as the heir, but Corlys wasn't having any of it. He said that names meant more than blood, and thus the Strongs are still seen as the heirs to Driftmark. Just like how Viserys wouldn't see the truth, he refuses to as well, and this causes issues in both of the kingdoms. Now Vaemond gets pretty annoyed by this, and he publicly announces that the Strongs are bastards. At the start of the trailer we see a royal ship going to King's Landing, which may be him, but I think it's more likely just Rhaenyra and Daemon. They talk about returning to the kingdom in the teaser to take back control, and I think it's more likely a shot of them. The sails are black, and there's also the royal chamber that appears on the royal boat with them on board. Rhaenyra talks about how the High Towers have struck the first blow, which likely calls back to last week when Alicent cut her hand. This was seen as first blood, but technically Aemond was on the receiving end of it due to losing his eye. Anyway, calling the Strongs bastards is a big no-no, and as we saw last week, this caused a lot of issues with Aemond. Viserys now classes it as high treason, and he said that anyone who said this was the case would have their tongues cut out. This doesn't happen with Vaemond, and instead things escalate quickly with Rhaenyra turning it up to 11. She sends Daemon to get him, and he beheads him before feeding his body to Syrax. Yikes. Now this happens during 126 AC, so it's possible that the time jump may go to this point rather than 129 with them just combining events from the heirs. I don't know exactly what order they'll place these events in, but we also get another betrothal during this time as Rhaenyra plans to wed her kids to Daemon's. I'm guessing this will happen when Vaemond first disputes that they're the heirs, and thus to quickly counter that, Rhaenyra will form the wedding alliance so that they get it either way. Now we might also get the tongue-cutting scene that we've talked about in the last 2 breakdowns. There were some of Vaemond's family that were disgusted by the death of their cousin, and they went directly to Viserys to plead to him to realise the Strongs were bastards. Viserys sat and listened to them listing all the evidence without saying a word, and then when they were done, he ordered to have their tongues removed. I think it's probably too similar to the scene with Larys to do this, but I thought I'd just bring it up in case they end up doing it again. Now there's also a big banquet after the death of Vaemond, in which Viserys tries to unite the houses one more time. The book talks about how they wore their opposite sides' colours in a show of good faith, and by this I mean Rhaenyra wears green, whilst Alicent wears red and black. They complement each other throughout, and it makes Viserys really happy, so happy for the guy. The book even talks about how Daemon salutes Otto, and the pair have of course hated each other since episode 1, but it's all fine now. We can all relax, it's over. Now Viserys ends up going to bed, and though they were trying to be civil, it didn't last long. Aemon ends up toasting the family, and he refers to his nephews as the strongest boys that he's ever seen. Yeah, what mate, did he just... We'll let that slide though, we're trying to keep the peace. But then Aemon followed this by saying, "Let us drain our cups to these 3 strong boys." It all kicked off after this, which I think you could see in the teaser, and this probably happens right after this moment. The realm never recovers, and I think this is when Rhaenyra will pack her bags and finally leave. She probably goes to see her father one last time before he dies, which is likely the bed scene that we get in the teaser. Now it is possible that Vaemond may even be working with the High Towers, as we see him alongside their soldiers at one point. They had the green flags in House Sigil, so Otto and Alicent may have brought him in to help oust the Strongs. Now it's also very likely that Rhae and Daemon will have their own children during this time. To make things even more confusing, they're called Aegon and Viserys. Alicent takes the Aegon one as a slight to her, which the book notes that it definitely was. The book also talks about how from that point onwards that the child will be called Aegon the Younger, whilst the older one will be called Aegon the Elder. The source material goes into how Rhaenyra never really lost her baby weight, and that she ended up becoming fat and almost grotesque. I don't think they're going to go this route, but it is important to bear in mind how she went from the Realm's Delight to this after all the stress that being the heir had on her. With Alicent, it talks about how Rey grew jealous of her because she kept her slim figure and didn't seem to carry the weight at all, the dirty bitch. Now, other details you might miss in the teaser are that Alicent is wearing a Faith of the Seven necklace. She wasn't wearing this in the last episode, and has probably now leaned into the religion heavily. We also get a shot of this symbol in the small council window. The Faith of the Seven is the most dominant religion in the realm, and if she can get this behind her as well, she'll be even more powerful. Alicent and her family are also joined by everyone's favourite character these days, Sir Criston Cole, the bastard. Now, her child Daeron isn't there, and I don't know if he's going to be in the series or not, as he should be born by now. He spent most of his youth in Old Town, so they might just be skipping out on him so things don't get even more complicated. There's also a quick shot of what I'm guessing is Daemon going to Mysaria. She now runs most of the underworld, and the cloak is similar to what Daemon has worn in the past. They'll likely try and get her to work with them, but as we've seen, she's happy playing both sides. Either way, that's the trailer, and I can't wait to watch the next episode. The series has been getting better and better, and I think this one is going to be a big one. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and also if we missed anything, be sure to point it out. We're running a competition right now and giving away 3 copies of Thor Love and Thunder on the 15th of October, and all you have to do to be on the chance of winning is like the video, make sure you subscribe with notifications on, and drop a comment below with your thoughts on the teaser. We pick the comments at random at the end of the month, and the winners of the last one are on screen right now, so if that's you, then message me on Twitter at Heavy Spoilers. If you want something else to watch, make sure you check out our breakdown of episode 7, in which we go over all the ins and outs of the entry. That'll be linked on screen right now, so head over there, and thanks for sitting through the video. Without the way, I've been Paul, I'll see you next time. Take care, peace.